short game equipment, and we have just introduced a line of golf clubs that addresses what I think are the fundamental shortcomings in wedges and short irons. And I'm not going to let this become a commercial, but if you like what I say, you really need to come to booth 1173 and see how we address these issues. Our industry builds golf clubs in what I consider to be, and this is an epiphany that came to me 2 years ago because I've been doing it the same way for 20 years too. We really approach this really in a nonsensical manner. So we take a wedge and we design the back of this golf club so that it cosmetically looks like we want. And then we take that same back design and we apply it to 48s and 50s and 52s and 54s and 58s and 60s and maybe 62s. I never once stopped while I've been doing this for 20 years, designing wedges that way. But the difference between a 48-degree wedge and a 60-degree wedge is 12 degrees, which is also the difference between a 5-iron and a driver. Now, below the 5-iron, I go about 6 or 8 degrees, and then I get into hybrids now because they work better. And then I go another 3 or 4 degrees, and I get into a small-headed fairway wood, a 5 or a 7. And I go another 4 or 5 degrees, and I get into a bigger-headed fairway wood, a 3. And another 2 or 3 or 4 degrees, and I have a driver head. So below my 5-iron, I have 4 or 5 distinctly different head designs because they just work better. But in that line of wedges through that 12 degrees, I'm supposed to believe that the same weighting that makes a great 60-degree wedge will make a great 48. Really, I mean, from the laws of physics, that makes no sense. If we turn our attention to irons, here's a history of irons in my 60 years. I grew up playing blade golf clubs in the 1950s, so that's all there was. You lived to get inside 8-iron range because that 42, 43-degree 8-iron and that 47-degree 9-iron, that 51-degree pitching wedge, you could score with that golf club. When I was 11, 12, 13 years old, I could hit that blade fine. Now that 5-iron and that 4-iron and that 3-iron, those were a little tough to hit. So along comes some smart people, very smart people like Carson Solheim, that designed a cavity back iron. But what they didn't do is break away from this notion of a match set. And in our industry, a match set means they all look alike, with a few exceptions like the Nike Pro Combo, which that concept has been tried 3 times that I'm aware of. It's never caught on with the golfer because the golfer is pounded with this match set idea. So what we did is we created this thin-faced, low-center gravity heel-and-toe weighted golf club, and we just opened up a world of opportunity for golfers. 5-irons were easy to hit, 7-irons were easy to hit. Wonderful thing. But 9-irons and pitching wedges became hard to hit because the ball went straight up your nose. So what our industry did, I'm guilty as the next guy, well, I haven't really ever designed a cavity back golf club. I'm a blade guy, and I'll talk about that. But what our industry did is said, we can fix that. Let's just take some loft off those clubs. So now I got a pitching wedge that isn't 51 anymore, it's 48. And this is not 48, it's 46. And this is not 46, it's 45, 4. There is at least 2 product lines in there that have a P club, because I don't call them pitching wedges anymore, there's been a pitching wedge made in about 20 years, that have a P club of 42.5 degrees. When I worked at Hogan, Mr. Hogan's 7-iron in 1950 was 43 degrees. Okay? So, is that a pitching wedge because you put a P on it? No. But what happened is that 3-iron and 4-iron still go the same distance, but I'm cranking all these down and taking the scoring clubs out of the golfer's bag. A thin face, low center gravity, perimeter weighted golf club gives you a forgiveness of impact in a middle iron where you're likely to make a miss. It does not function well on a scoring club. So, which is why most tour players, if given an option by their endorsement company, will play, historically, would play blades. The young players, a lot of them are cavity back guys because that's all they've ever known. They played up with it. A lot of us here are old enough that we grew up with blades and maybe made the transition. But the key to distance control is trajectory control. And good players hit short irons that go this way. They don't hit short irons that just blow up into the air and go who knows how far. And the reason they do that is the key to distance control. If you hit a 6-iron shot from 160, 170, and it's 30 or 40 feet long or short, that really isn't bad from 170. But a gap wedge shot from 105 that's 30 feet long or short is a horrible gap wedge shot. So, you know, when we get inside 9-iron range, we want to score. We want to hit it close to hole. We want to drive some tacks. And modern golf clubs are just not really designed very well for that purpose, personally. I don't believe. And what we did is we looked and said, what do you need for distance control and consistency? You need a thick face. You need meat behind that golf ball. The higher the loft on a golf club gets, the less important heel and toe weighting becomes, because directional deviation is not, you know, as important as distance deviation. So the other thing, so the idea of P clubs matching a 6-iron, and the way this industry designs golf clubs is the R&D department goes and starts working on the 6-iron profile, get the shape they want, get the weighting where they want, they test it, they tweak it, they put it on iron bar, they let some golfers hit it. When they get that 6-iron right, it goes over to the design department and puts all the cool little design pixie dust on it, makes it look really cool. But their marching orders are, make all these look like this. You know, tweak it, get your design elements, get your graphic elements, make them all look this way. Pitch and wedge to 6-iron, 16 degrees. 6-iron to driver, 16 degrees. All right, you guys are club makers. Has anybody ever come to you and said, I love these irons you built for me, can you make a driver that looks like my 6-iron? No. Not a 3-wood that looks like my 6-iron. Today we don't even want a 4-iron that looks like my 6-iron, but I'm going to give you a pitch and wedge that looks like your 6-iron. It's nonsensical, it defies all the laws of physics, and it ought to be changed, and we did it. So, I'm sorry? So the other element that we really have to talk about in the short game is feel. I mean, I've been in the wedge business a long time. I've talked to more people about wedges over the last 5 years, 6, 8 years, and spin and feel, spin and feel, spin and feel. It's all anybody talks about. Well, guys, here's the reality. Spin is no longer a feature. Everybody's wedges spin the same. When we were milling grooves with nice sharp edges, everybody's wedges spun the same. They spun like crazy. Shoot up golf balls, but they spun like crazy. When the USGA changed this rule and made us put a curved edge on these grooves, just like everybody else, I started putting these different variations on that into eidolon wedges to see what happened. And that's where this whole thing came from, is I didn't like what happened. The ball was sliding up the face, it's going a little higher, but everybody had to do it. And what you have now in the industry is everybody has their little zip groove, MacDaddy, whatever they're going to call it, but these grooves are all the same. And every company in there has something that says our grooves spin better than brand A, B, and C. And this company says our grooves spin better than A, B, and C. And this company has their test that says our grooves spin better than A, B, and C. What they're talking about is 200 and 300 RPMs out of 8,000. That is not effective and not impactful. If you put an iron shot into a green with 8,200 RPMs versus 7,200 RPMs, you are not going to see a difference in ball performance. 7,200 to 4,200, yeah, you'll see a difference. But 200 or 300 RPMs on a shot at full swing speed does not make any difference. And at short pitch speed, I mean, it really, in all respect to their big ad budgets, but we all are making the same grooves now. And these guys are putting 17 on the face versus 15 and splitting hair. It's really splitting hair. So feel, and the industry has given us wedges forever, one shaft for everybody. It's a heavy, stiff steel shaft. It doesn't fit anybody, but it's cheap, and it makes production in masses simple. If I've got to make 60,000 56-12 wedges, sure is easy to do it if I use the same shaft in all of them, and I can sell them to Edwin Watts, 10,000 in the purchase order, and it's easy. But look at this room. You think all of us ought to be playing the same wedge shaft? You know, and I'm nearly 60 and 5'7", hit a gap wedge 102. This gentleman is somewhere around my age, probably hits a gap wedge 120. Got a young guy back here, probably can hit it 130 if he wants to. I mean, there's no way we all should hit the same shaft. So what I'm a believer in, when you're building wedges, fitting wedges and short irons, that you need to look at each of these clubs as a specialized shot making tool. And you make sure that the gap wedge, the sand wedge, the 60, the 58, whatever that guy's going to carry, that it really fits him. And focus on the shaft. And what I like to recommend is, I call it the seamless transition. If this golfer is used to a mid-70s gram graphite in an R-flex, keep him in a mid-70s in an R-flex. If he's used to a dynamic gold or a rifle and a stiff flex, keep him in a heavy steel shaft and a stiff flex. But tip your shafts, prepare your shafts, give him a firmer tip, a little softer midsection. I'm a believer that the scoring clubs all should be flatline frequency. You know, that curve, that frequency curve should go really flat or even downturn. And some of you have known me for years, since I started talking to PCS, and back when y'all had the PCS and everything. I'm a believer most golfers are playing golf clubs too strong. They can handle a softer shaft. I'm a believer that short irons should be a softer shaft. I had a teaching pro tell me one time, and who was also a club maker, a really good one, that the reason that people hit short irons too high is also because they can't load that shaft, because the industry makes a frequency curve like this, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 pit. And when you get up here, it's stiffer, it's shorter, and I'm taking a shorter swing. So I'm not out here really putting a move on it like I am with the driver. So I can load that 44-inch driver shaft and then get ahead of it before it starts unloading and hopefully get ahead of it again. But when I start down here, I've got a heavy head and I've got a wedge shot, and I come into here because I can't load the shaft. That head's coming, and I don't have the hand speed to stay ahead of it. And so the average golfer hits short irons and they're here, and they add a bunch of loft because they're not strong enough to be here with that old heavy stiff steel shaft that they couldn't ever load to begin with. And you put golfers in softer shafts in their wedges and their short irons, and you'll see them, their shot making trajectories will come down, their shot making will improve. So